Well, travel spending in Orlando and other tourist destinations could take a hit, and we're talking a major hit from the terror attack. I want to go to former NYPD Commissioner Howard Safir on if people should, what should we be doing? I mean, we know the ultimate goal, the end goal of terrorism and terror is to make us divert from our everyday life. For instance, taking the kids to Disney. So if we do that en masse, to a degree, they've won.
That's true, but we have to understand we're a nation at war, and we're acting like a nation of victims. What we should be doing is changing our behavior like we did during World War II or during the Korean War, and realize that we have an intelligent, well-funded enemy who has changed its strategy. And its strategy now that they're losing some battles in the Middle East is to activate people who would be self-radicalized, like Mateen. And what we have to do is increase security at soft targets. We have to make sure that employees are trained. We have to do active shooter drills. And we have to empower our intelligence agencies and our law enforcement agencies to be able to use the tools that they have. What we did to the NSA in curtailing them from using phone information really hurts us. You know, you look at Mateen, he went to Saudi Arabia 2 times. We don't know whether or not he was involved with ISIS there or not.
But, okay, so you followed a trail. You went to Saudi Arabia 2 years in a row on, I think, on some trip not associated with visiting Mecca. I think that much was reported. Then they interviewed him twice, 2013, 2014, and still he slipped through the cracks. How do you tighten that up? You know, and we keep hearing about these watch lists. What does it entail if someone is on a watch list and they're deemed to be a danger or a potential danger?
I think the first thing you do, a very quick fix, is make sure that all licensed firearms dealers have that terror watch list and that anybody who's on it being prohibited from buying any kind of weapon. That would have stopped him here.
We just heard Bridget Gabrielle say that she's seen reports and evidence that 7 out of 10 mosques are preaching the overthrow of democracy, the radicalization that gets these homegrown American-born men, for the most part, and they become radicalized to the point where they kill fellow Americans. Do you advocate surveillance on mosques as well?
I do. You know, people talk about profiling and they sacrifice safety for political correctness. The fact is, we know what the terrorists look like. We know that terrorists are young men in their 20s with Islamic backgrounds. This is not condemning all of Islam,
sure,
but the fact is, when we know who the enemy is, we ought to be looking for them.
Sure.
So I am certainly in favor of doing surveillance on mosques.
I know Sunday morning the headline comes up, 50 presumed dead in Orlando. You wait and you see the name of the potential shooter, and then you could say, okay, you know, to your point. I've got breaking news I want to ask you about just now coming over. Officials saying that the Russian government or hackers working for them penetrated the DNC's computer network. They gained access to all of the information that it had on Donald Trump. What do you think? I mean, here's the Russians that apparently they were able to read all of the emails, read all of the chats, and take all of this information that had been accumulated on Donald Trump.
Well, the fact is that our federal government, to the best of my knowledge, is not prepared to deal with this kind of hacking. They're not using the resources of the private sector. They're not using data that's available. And this is going to put us in a very compromising position. Is
this all about ideology, or is it just the bottom line? They don't want to spend the money that it would take to but this is, I mean, we're talking about safeguarding some vital information here.
Look, we have a president who doesn't even acknowledge that Islam is involved in terrorism. Would he acknowledge that Russia and China are involved in hacking? Would Hillary Clinton acknowledge that perhaps a server on a farm was a pretty easy target? I mean, it really starts to get ludicrous. Well, it is ludicrous, and that's why this administration, unfortunately, puts all of Americans in danger, and that's why we need a change. So we keep hearing about intelligence gathering, and there's some efficiency to it. Again, Mateen was on list. He was interviewed. Local law enforcement never knew about it. He was dropped through the cracks. How do you reconcile that? Because this was a big issue going back to 9/11, when the CIA didn't talk to the FBI. How do we get it all under one umbrella? I thought we did, and get the information out there and save lives. We get it under one umbrella by empowering law enforcement and our intelligence agencies to do what they know how to do. And this is fixable, but it's not fixable if you have an administration that is more concerned about insulting Muslims than they are about keeping Americans safe. Howard Safir, former NYPD Commissioner, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.